Hey, welcome back. Today, we're about to change something fundamental in the way you think about influence. Because if you've ever felt the frustration of doing everything right, the right product, the right service, even the right attitude, and still watching opportunities slip away, I need you to listen carefully. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, the authority hijack. How it works, why it works, and how, if you learn to use it ethically and intelligently, you can bypass resistance, collapse skepticism, and fast-track trust without exhausting yourself trying to constantly prove your worth. This is not theoretical. This is not based on empty buzzwords. This is based on how real players in business, politics, art, and leadership rise from unknown to inevitable. And it's based on mistakes I made painfully early in my journey, mistakes you can now avoid. Let's start here. Influence isn't built from scratch. Not really. Influence is transferred. In every industry, in every movement, in every relationship, trust is not created. It is passed like a baton in a race. And most people lose because they insist on running their first lap with no baton in their hand, insisting they must be recognized on their own merits first. It doesn't work that way. Human beings are wired for shortcuts, and authority is one of the strongest mental shortcuts we have. When someone walks into a room draped, however subtly, in the symbols of existing trust, associations, endorsements, familiar narratives, the brain lets them in without interrogation. No grilling, no long, cautious evaluation. It happens almost automatically. And if you don't understand this, you end up spending months, even years, screaming into the void, wondering why your hard work isn't enough. It's not because your work isn't good. It's because you're asking people to build trust instead of transfer it. Authority hijacking flips this completely. It teaches you to step into existing currents of belief instead of trying to dig a new riverbed with your bare hands. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Think about how new politicians rise. They almost never come from nowhere. They align themselves with the legacy of a beloved predecessor. They frame their story as the natural continuation of a trusted narrative. They hijack emotional trust that was already built and simply reframe it onto themselves. Smart brands do the same. Smart leaders do the same. Even smart artists do the same. When the painter Banksy became a phenomenon, it wasn't just because of the art. It was because the art was framed inside a lineage of rebellious street culture that people already trusted to represent something raw and pure. Authority hijacking at its finest. And this doesn't just happen at massive scales. It happens quietly, every day, in rooms you walk into, too. I remember the first time I realized I had been authority hijacked against without even noticing. It was a business negotiation. I thought I was evaluating a proposal based on its merits. But halfway through, I realized the seller had positioned every part of his offer alongside figures and frameworks I already admired. He didn't have to persuade me from zero. He simply reminded me of things I already loved, trusted, and believed in. His success was almost inevitable. That taught me something humbling. People don't like to think harder. They like to trust faster. Authority hijack isn't manipulation. It's mercy for a mind that's overwhelmed with choices every day. If you give people an easy, trusted bridge to walk toward you, they will take it. If you force them to build the bridge themselves, they won't even try. Now let me ground this in an even sharper example. PayPal's growth strategy. When PayPal first launched, it faced a massive problem. No one trusted online payments. Fear was high. Skepticism was sky high. So what did they do? They hijacked trust from two sources. First, eBay users, who already trusted each other more than banks, and second, credible institutions like venture capital firms and media outlets. They didn't just market PayPal, they tied their entire identity to existing trust pipelines. The early PayPal logo didn't scream brand new, it screamed reliable facilitator of what you already do. That's authority hijack in action, not reinventing belief, repositioning inside belief. And here's where it gets even deeper. Authority hijack isn't just about names, logos, or partnerships. It's about positioning yourself inside someone else's emotional momentum. That's why sometimes the most powerful authority hijacks happen invisibly, through story, not logos. I've seen unknown coaches and consultants pull six-figure deals simply by aligning their personal narrative with movements or philosophies the client already emotionally resonated with. No fakery, no deception, just intelligent alignment. Story can be the ultimate hijack because a great story fuses your authority to something bigger than yourself, something your audience already respects. Let's shift for a moment into a mistake I see people make when they first try this. They go too hard. They try to announce their authority hijack instead of letting it breathe subtly. Remember this: authority hijack works best when it's almost invisible. If you walk into a room bragging about who endorses you or what frameworks you align with, it feels desperate. It smells fake. The best authority hijacks feel organic, inevitable, natural. You want your audience to discover your alignment, not feel like you are shoving it down their throat. Think about the difference between someone casually mentioning they graduated from Harvard versus someone who flashes it in neon lights every 3 sentences. One deepens trust, the other erodes it. Authority hijack isn't about shouting. It's about echoing the beliefs already swirling inside the room until the room feels you were always meant to be there. Now, before we go deeper, I need to say something critical. Authority hijacking must be done with respect for the truth. Never fake affiliations. Never lie about partnerships. Never stretch facts beyond recognition. Because when you break trust, especially when you've borrowed it, it collapses much faster and more violently than trust you built yourself. Authority borrowed ethically becomes a bridge. Authority stolen deceitfully becomes a trapdoor. Always build on solid ground. That's the long game. That's the real power. Let's talk softer tactics now. The subtle authority hijacks that elite communicators use without most people even noticing. One technique is called value mirroring. Instead of directly associating with a person or brand, you mirror the language, values, and priorities of trusted figures your audience already admires. A young entrepreneur I once coached doubled his deal closing rate simply by adopting the framing and phrasing styles of a respected thought leader in his industry. He never claimed affiliation. He never name-dropped. He simply sounded like he belonged to the same intellectual family. Authority hijacked, gently, elegantly. Another soft technique is context shaping. This is where you place yourself in familiar scenes your audience already respects. Think about authors who launch their book by speaking at iconic venues. Even if the audience doesn't consciously register it, the context lends subconscious authority. Where you appear, who you appear alongside, how you frame your introduction. These are authority hijack opportunities hiding in plain sight. Most people ignore them. The elite use them like scalpel blades. Now let's widen the view even further. Authority hijack isn't just about external strategies, it's also about internal clarity. You can't successfully hijack authority unless you deeply understand what authority means to your audience. Authority is subjective. What feels credible to one market may feel irrelevant to another. That's why mapping your audience's emotional trust points is critical. Never assume you know who they trust. Study them, listen to them, map their myths, their heroes, their trusted frameworks. Authority hijack is not a brute force tactic. It's precision-guided empathy. The best authority hijacks feel less like manipulation and more like fulfillment, fulfilling an emotional need for trust, safety, belonging, excellence. If you hijack the wrong authority stream, you can actually alienate your audience faster. If you hijack the right one, they will lean in before you say a word. A quick personal story before we move toward the final tactical blueprint. Years ago, I was trying to land a consulting client who seemed completely uninterested. Every logical argument I made bounced off, every credential I displayed got shrugged off. Then one night, I read an interview where he talked about a particular thinker he admired, someone whose values overlapped heavily with mine, though I had never mentioned it. At the next meeting, I didn't mention myself. I simply framed the project through the lenses of that thinker's principles: integrity, long-termism, strategic patience. Everything changed. The room warmed, the barriers dropped. The contract was signed without a single objection. That wasn't magic. That was authority hijack, not stealing someone's voice, but aligning with a voice the audience already trusted. Strategic empathy, tactical trust transfer. All right. Let's crystallize everything with a final blueprint you can use immediately: the Authority Hijack Execution Map. Phase 1. Emotional trust mapping: study your audience until you know who or what they emotionally trust. Not what they say they respect, what their actions show they trust. Actions over words. Phase 2, strategic positioning. Find your authentic point of alignment. Never fake it, but find where your story, service, or product naturally dovetails with the trusted framework. Phase 3, subtle framing. Integrate the authority cues naturally, invisibly into your narrative, your branding, your pitch. Let them discover it, not be bludgeoned with it. Phase 4, ethical anchoring. Always root your authority, hijack in reality, never stretch facts. Anchor yourself in real, sustainable trust so the bridge you build doesn't collapse. Master this sequence and you'll walk differently. You'll speak differently. You'll be trusted differently. You won't be fighting uphill battles anymore. You'll be quietly, powerfully welcomed into rooms most people never even get to enter. Because Authority Hijack, at its highest level, isn't about you at all. It's about them, their hopes, their fears, their hunger for trusted leadership. When you step into that current respectfully, intelligently, ethically, you stop struggling for attention. You start leading it. And that's when your ideas, your offers, your movements stop feeling like new proposals and start feeling like inevitable progressions people were already waiting for. You can't force people to trust you from scratch, but you can meet their trust where it already lives. And from there, you build empires. Welcome to the real game.